Hi everybody, and welcome to our second exciting day for us, Monday off in Brizzy, of Customer Service Week. Again, love this week. It's an opportunity to celebrate all of the great things that happen in our industry, and I've loved having sessions this week. We've got a whole week lined up, but today we're lucky enough to be joined by one of our industry's rising stars, Liam Henry. Liam was the winner of the prestigious Team Leader of the Year National Award in 2023, where he showcased this amazing ability to balance. I call it balancing care with drive. So super excited about today's session, which is, all about that, leading with care and balancing that high performance and employee well-being. In the spirit of reconciliation, Auscontact acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. Today's webinar will run for approximately 60 minutes. And it's going to be a really informal chat. And, really, hopefully, we'll get to learn a little bit more about, the types of things that Liam's seeing in the environment now, and how he applies this thinking, this balance, because now it's more important than ever to be considering well-being. We've got a whole lot of different obligations as leaders in the environment, so it's important to get that right. But equally, we're here to do a job, and we need to be driving great performance for not just for our customers, but for our organisation. So hopefully there'll be some great insights and some interesting bits for you to learn from today. I'm Fran Southwood, CEO of Auscontact and your moderator for today. Just some general housekeeping for you. If you want to participate with today, use our Q&A button and the chat feature. As I said, the session itself is really just a chat between Liam and myself. And we will be going through some of those, things that he does differently and why it is that Liam stands out as a leader. So we'll go through some of that. But if you've got comments or questions or anything that you want to add, just put them there into the chat, and I'll pull that into the conversation. Again, nothing's off limits. Well, I say that. Hopefully, nothing's off the limits with you either, Liam. But it's just a great opportunity to sort of learn a little bit more about what's working and sort of what you're seeing within the environment today, and how it is that you're driving the successful outcomes you are at ANZ. So I'm gonna say let's get into it. If anyone has any problems with their tech or anything like that, click the raise hand feature, and one of the team will jump on. Otherwise, you can use the dial-in numbers that would have been in your email registration form. I'm going to stop talking, and Liam, I'm going to get you to introduce yourself a little bit.
Okay.
Liam Henry, ANZ, over to you. How long have you been doing what you're doing? And yeah, a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. My name's Liam. Now my title is Team Manager of Technical Support Capability and Coaching here in the Contact Centre. So, my team provides coaching and support to new starters into the bank's contact centre. Provides coaching for tenured bankers as well, and has a look at skill gaps across the teams. Previously, I was a first contact team leader, so team leader of our Services AU team, where my team would deal with credit cards, retail accounts, internet banking queries as well. And prior to that, had been in different leadership positions across the contact center here and at other jobs as well. So I've been leading teams for about 8 years now. I would say I've got 8 years of people leadership experience, and I've been working in contact centers since 2015. So coming up to 10 years. Absolutely love the environment. I think it's such a great place for people to really be themselves, commit themselves to an opportunity to serve others, and really enjoy what they're doing as well. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and my role.
A little bit about you. Do you love what you do?
Absolutely. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So if you think about, you would have seen in your time, and again, I know you've worked across different organisations, but if we think about your time at ANZ, and again, specifically, you've moved through roles, right?
Mhm.
Um, what sort of changes have you seen in response to, we've been through COVID, we've kind of come out the other side of that. What have you seen change as far as the expectations on leaders and what you need to be up for?
I think bringing up COVID's a really big one. Obviously, it took a lot out of our lives. There's been a lot of change because of it. As leaders as well, I think there's been a larger consideration of the people element. I think since COVID, not to say it wasn't there before, but we've had the opportunity to work from home. There was a period down here in Melbourne, well, for a long period where we were at home, and then as we reverted back to normal. There was the hybrid working environment. People had already started up with different routines. It was a nice, refreshing opportunity to be able to work from home. If you've got small kids, you can take them to school, even larger kids as well. If you've got other commitments, you can finish at 4:30, close your laptop, and you're done. You're at home. You don't need a commute. So there's been a bit of a shift, I feel, in the last few years around being able to balance keeping people together when you are thinking about, if it's coming into the office for 2 or 3 days a week to connect, or the freedom or the luxuries you can feel for yourself as an individual when you are able to work from home and have that ability to switch off immediately. Yeah.
Definitely. It's an interesting one, right? And we're seeing in the media at the moment quite a few organisations say, that's it, everyone back to the office, rightly or wrongly, they've got particular reasons that they're kind of calling out. But if you think about, I guess, how you've had to rethink how you lead a team that's actually not in front of you,
Mm,
and one of the key challenges is around motivation.
yeah.
How do you motivate? So what are the types of things that, if you reflect, you've had to actually do a bit differently with teams that aren't physically in front of you? What are the different signs and sort of, I guess, indicators around, particularly around that well-being, right? How
Mm.
do you manage that when they're not there, when you can't physically see them?
Yeah, I think at its most simplest form, it's checking in with everybody, keeping an open dialogue. If we're hybrid, if I'm in the office and people are at home, or vice versa, or we're all at home, it's making sure to really utilize the tools that we have available. If it's your chats, your Microsoft Team, Outlook, sending out an email. But I'm a huge fan of instant messaging, so I'm pretty lethal on the chats, reaching out every morning to the team as a whole, sending out some updates, if it's just memes or funnies, and reaching out to people individually as well, making
Yeah.
sure that you actually do have an opportunity to at least speak with everybody each day. I find is important where you can. Obviously, the role might limit that if we've got phone based bankers as an example, but being able to pick up the phone and give someone a call and talk about work related things, and then that can obviously give you a great indication of how they're doing. You can hear it in their voice. You can maybe in the way that they've said something or through the work that they've delivered. It's always easier to give them a call instead of sending him a message. And I think back to when we were permanently in office and we had phones on the desk, and you just pick it up and call people when you had a thought instead of trying to send out a wordy email or a text message.
Mm.
Yeah.
Are you anything like me? I love instant message, but I hate it when people don't instantly reply. So there's this whole thing around my expectations versus reality. That maybe it's something about instant gratification, but I want that straight away if I message them. But it does mean you have to lead a bit differently, right? You have
Yeah.
to be quite deliberate and intentional, because what's not happening are those walking past informal kind of conversations. So
Mm.
it does, I guess, mean that you need to kind of amp up your conscious commitment to those communications. If you think about, the customer in that, how do you, as a team leader, continue to connect your people, whether they're at home or in office, in relation to that motivation for customer excellence? How do you keep them engaged and I guess um, connected to why it matters, right? Because sometimes contact center jobs are hard.
Mm.
They can often be for an individual. I'm on a phone all day, and that can be, it's just one call after the other. So, how do you, as a leader, actually create the opportunity to continue to challenge and push and encourage around that exceeding customer expectation kind of lens?
Yeah, I don't think the work from home impacts that too much when you
Yeah.
think about the role of a consultant, a banker.
Mm,
If you were in the office, you would still be on a call, hitting ready and grabbing another one. It's just that when you're at
yeah.
home, you can actually be a little bit more isolated. There was a period where I was a phone operator during COVID, and I found it more taxing than I was on my own.
Yeah.
I felt lonely. There would be minimal opportunities to be able to reach out between calls to your team chat just to see what everybody's up to. So as a leader, that's something that I want to make sure that we are keeping that dialogue open, and it doesn't need to be an instant response to what you were saying
Yeah.
before. It's nice to kind of leave a question in there for them to get back to you when they can, have an opportunity to have the different types of messaging as well. So if it is an email that, if it's a daily or a weekly update that kind of shows you where we're currently sitting as a team, maybe in the individual level as well, and setting up some goals with everybody at the start of the week, you've then obviously got your dialogue for the remainder of that period to check in and see how they're going. And it does remind you as well that I'm not just here to answer phone calls all day and then log off and
Yeah.
not think about it until tomorrow. It's hey, I actually put in my best effort to be able to resolve my customer queries. I completed this specific process or call type a little bit faster than I did yesterday, and that feels really great. And being able to then go, I can't wait to come back in tomorrow and give it another go, because I feel like the work that I've put in today has actually given a result to myself.
So it's really important to connect that purpose, isn't it?
Yeah.
And reinforce the connection to purpose. Yesterday, I did a session with Shelley Flett, who's an amazing leadership coach and trainer, right? And we were talking about accountability, and you've just touched on it again there around, creating the opportunity in the environment where you talk about accountability and expectations and things like that. How do you set your how do you set expectations within your team? Do you do them as a team? Do you do it individually? And then how do you reinforce that?
Yep. Well, I do it at a team level and as an individual level.
Yep.
There was a period where I was leading new to bank groups, so I was blessed with being able to introduce people into the environment, take them through or be a part of the training, and then the first few weeks when they were taking calls as well. So being able to address the group face to face as a whole, again reiterate it in written word as well, so they've got that there. But then within their first one-on-ones or check-ins, being able to sit down and share what my expectations of them are, and then ask them, what are your expectations of me as a leader? Because once you're both really united with that, you've got the same level of understanding. Then when it comes to the enforcing or the reinforcing, it doesn't come as a surprise. I know I've spoken about this in the past, where if it's not a surprise, it doesn't feel like it's a hard conversation to have.
Yeah.
So if everyone's clear, you can tie it back to something that we've spoken about previously, or it's in an email that I sent out to the team when you first joined, or whatever it may be. Being able to keep those expectations level is really just second nature. I feel when you have that open communication. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think you've raised a really important point there too. And I know talking to emerging leaders, people that are just stepping into that team leader role for the first time and what they're finding challenging, quite a number are still saying, those uncomfortable conversations
Mm,
are still things that they might go and do a whole lot of, tactical or operational things first because that's easy. We'll we'll finish all of that and then we'll get back to it. It's almost this, if I procrastinate long enough, it might kind
It'll
of
blow over.
lessen it.
Yeah.
But we all know that doesn't happen, right? But I think your point then about, if you have built this environment where people actually have a really clear understanding of expectations and you are regularly talking about progress. So I call that, that feedback environment, right?
Mm,
And feedback just becomes conversation. If you have got that stuff ticking over right and the rhythm's right, those hard conversations are not so hard.
yeah.
Suddenly, it's just a conversation. So if you were to talk to people just starting out around, some of the key things that have helped you actually get better at those hard conversations or get
Yeah.
better at actually creating the environment of that openness, what would you say? What are the types of things that help you do it? Now it's part of your DNA, it's how you operate,
Mm.
but there was obviously a time when that wasn't the case. So did you have some conscious steps that you took to really make sure that you dealt with those things regularly, etc.?
Yeah, I don't know if it was necessarily conscious. It may have been at the time, but like you said, it's almost second nature now, and you start to just go, "Oh, that's what I normally do." The other piece is when you were talking about feedback, the having that environment where people feel psychologically safe. So being able to question, raise concerns, ask for feedback, or give me feedback. I think that's a really important thing. You mentioned emerging leaders, and I've seen people, and maybe I might have had the thought as well, as oh, I'm in a team leader role now. I've elevated. I'm that next level up. You start to look a little bit hierarchically at the picture, and it's
Yeah.
well, what I say goes potentially, which obviously isn't the case. And when you strip that back, remove the ego, and go at the end of the day, we're 10, 15 people working together. What my role is different to what your role is, but I don't know if I'm doing the right job unless you tell me that I'm not. And making people comfortable to be able to call out that hey, things aren't right, because it does start to remove those barriers between you and your staff or your team, to be able to have those conversations. It doesn't feel as scary. It does feel like, almost like if you're hanging out with mates, and somebody says something and you can call them out right away and say, hey, that's not on, or I don't appreciate how you said that. You could do that with your teammates and not feel like it's going to blow up into you know, a full blown case. Or hopefully it wouldn't if you're addressing it in the right way, because everybody knows when you're at work, you should be treating people with respect. You're both here to get a job done, and you shouldn't be thinking in the way of that person's going to make my life more difficult. And when we're talking about, if you're putting it off, if you're not having a conversation, that's in your own head, making it more difficult, because all you've got is yourself to think about it instead of bringing in that
Yeah.
new bit of information, the new data point to go, oh, I was just assuming that this was why something was happening, but now I've spoken to them. It's not the case at all.
And it wasn't a big deal. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you're right. Sometimes we do get in our own heads. And I think your point there about sort of stripping it back and letting go of the ego, it's such an important, I say that's one of those gems because you know and sometimes it's about the construct in an organization, right? That there is this very hierarchical sort of structure that actually means people step into it and kind of feel like this I don't know, entitled kind of, or this authorizing environment suddenly allows them to kind of be that, a little bit ego driven.
Mm,
Um, I would say people that can't let that go will actually kind of stumble and stop. They'll never reach their full potential unless they can kind of strip it back, as you say, let go
mm,
of that ego. Um, and it is about that mutual coming from both of you need to be coming from a position of openness and learning and recognizing that actually you don't have all the answers just because you've got a title called team leader or manager or whatever
yeah.
the title is. And probably what I see, and particularly post COVID, right? There's a whole lot of people that have moved into roles and not necessarily had the right amount of support to help them
Mm,
be amazing in those roles. We suddenly had organizations needing to double in size. We suddenly had more customer interactions, and suddenly these new leaders, they were never going to succeed
mm,
because all of the structure and care and guidance around them was not necessarily scaled to support them. Um, what would you say if you think about your formative years as a leader? Did you have a mentor? Did you have someone that you looked up to that kind of gave you some guidance, or did you really just feel it out on your own? Because some people do that and succeed, are incredibly successful. But
yeah.
what was your pathway?
Definitely. I don't know if it was a formal mentor,
Yeah,
but it was a bit of a when I started in a contact center, I was 19, so I
yep,
was relatively fresh out of school. Still trying to figure out who I am, what I want to do, and when you're put into a position where you see somebody and you're impressed by them, it's almost like that quote: "Mimicry is the highest form of flattery." Was a bit of a monkey see, monkey do. Around the way that they were working with people, what they were doing. For myself, it wasn't conscious at the time, but I found, I was when I was coming in a little bit earlier, I was sitting with them at their desk, asking questions about what they were doing. What does a team leader actually do? I wasn't sure, and started to learn about the role through that way. And I think it's also being able to, I think having a bit more of a sort of personable personality as well, potentially liked me, decided to throw some extra work my way and see how I would go. And then from that, even through my leadership journey, there is always somebody that I look up to. There's,
yep,
there's elements of what they do that I'm really impressed by. I don't necessarily tell them I'm really, really impressed with you. How do you do that? I think there's also that joy for being able to figure it out on your own,
yeah,
through that learning experience. Go out, ask questions, um, you know, absorb it all in, and then put it into practice yourself. And you're not going to get it right, but that's the best part of learning, is not getting it right. Because if you got it right all the time, you don't learn anything. You're just doing what you think is fine. But if you
yeah,
get it wrong, make a mistake, get some feedback, feel really uncomfortable with yourself after you've gone about a conversation in a certain way or sent an email that hasn't landed, your immediate thought is, how do I do that differently? So that's, yeah, kind of my journey so far, and I'm blessed where I work with so many different people that have such differing strengths as well. So it's almost like a smorgasbord of who can I sit there and quietly observe and try to put into place in my role at the moment. Yeah.
it's great advice though, because there will be different strengths and different elements of leadership style that you see in others that you think actually that sits really nicely with me. It
Mm,
sits comfortably. I think that the most successful leaders I'm lucky enough to talk to have kind of figured that out through a whole lot of mistakes, as you say, but in an environment where they were safe and felt that it was okay to fail,
mm,
as long as they failed fast, and really then thought about, what do I take away from this and how do I, learn more from it. But it is awesome when you get to be part of an environment which lets you kind of see that. I think, equally you can learn a lot from a not so great leader,
yep.
about who you don't want to be and how you don't want to operate. And I think sometimes that allows you to come into your own a little bit as well.
Yeah, it's I had the thought where there's no one right way to do anything, but there is a right way for you to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
And you say, mate, a not so great leader, it might just be someone who you disagree with in their methods, but they
Yep.
are they're successful in what they're achieving. If it's metrics based, if it's team engagement, people love working for them. But you could talk to someone sitting right next to their staff member and say, oh, I'm not a massive fan. So it's really just what feels comfortable and easy for you, and if it's achieving your outcomes, if it's staff performance, if it's that the most simple thing of, I enjoy going to work, then keep doing it. If you don't like it, stop.
No, totally agree with that. You talked before about that supportive environment and, the psychosocial safety components of
Mm,
Making sure people understand what is expected and what's not is really actually a key part to that. But how do you ensure that when you're pushing for that customer outcome, because again, my best might be different to your best, and someone else's capability, they might be able to resolve, 100 things versus someone that can do 50, but they're both absolutely pushing their best. How do you balance pushing for great customer service,
Mm-hmm.
but still ensure that your team feels supported and that you are tapped into what are those idiosyncrasies of your individual teammates that you actually need to really consider when you're pushing and how you push?
Yeah, I think initially it is tapping into or aiming to tap into understanding what the best version of themselves is in their mind.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
we speak about it a fair bit where some people are not career driven. They're happy to come in, complete the role because they really enjoy it,
Yep.
and then log off. Other people are doing it because they want to move, if it's up or out or learn new skills, all of that sort of stuff. So being able to tap into, what is that best version of you, and then being able to relate it into the performance of their role.
Mm.
If it's specifically customer outcomes, I feel like that's at the bare minimum where you should be. Have great conversations with customers, remember their name, don't ask the same question 2 or 3 times, provide the solution, make sure that everything's been addressed, and send them on their way with a smile. Like that's contact center. But being able to, tap into, okay, efficiency is something that you really desire. Maybe you're a numbers person, for sales, you're in a service environment and you're thinking, how do I get to be the person who answers the most calls a day? So it's then really just sitting down and going, well, how do you do what you're doing but efficiently? So I'm not asking you to bring it into 2-minute calls. That's not the target, but you're still having those great conversations and cutting off the fat if it is. Maybe they're just
Yep.
not someone who does small talk too well. On the other hand, maybe you've got someone who is really good at just waffling for 15 minutes and you're trying to need to bring it down. But it's okay, how do you work on multitasking? So you can have that conversation with your customer. You can feel really warm and comfortable and feel like, you've had a great, again, conversation with the customer. But through all of that, you can then at the end go, well, that's all done for you. Was there anything else?
Yep.
And wow, you got that done while you were talking to me, and it's that impressed response. It's something that when I think of high performance um, for bankers or phone consultants, it's when the customer has that moment of almost forgetting that they've called an organization and they've spoken to, Liam or Fran.
Mm.
It's really nice to go when you get off the phone or towards the end of the call. Oh, thank you so much, Fran, like for helping me. That was great. Um, Being able to tie that into the results, I think, is a great outcome because you can do it all efficiently and what the organization or the contact center might require from you, but you can still have a great outcome with the customer at the end of the day because that's who we're here for, isn't it?
No, you raise a really good point though, right? Because the customer, there's such diversity, right, in your customer
Mhm.
group. And what looks great and feels great for them will be different. So we talk about organizations being able to tailor interactions and tailor support, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a superpower to be able to recognize that the customer actually needs a bit more from me here. So I'm gonna let that happen.
Mhm.
But actually, I'm going to get some other things done as well, so it doesn't impact what the organisation needs from me. That's a real art,
Yeah,
particularly to be able to then have a customer walk away, because again, it might be the most efficient call according to an internal standard from an organisation. Customer felt particular things. They felt rushed. They felt not heard. They felt hurried. All of those things. That for
yeah,
them, it wasn't great.
and
So
you
it
can
is,
see
yeah,
it. You can see it in things like NPS results or
yeah,
comments if you've got the ability to read what the customers are saying. Where you might listen to the call and, as a leader, if you're focusing on efficiency, it was completed within X amount of minutes, everything was done, all the compliance checks, tick 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 tick, but the customer's giving you a 5. But the next customer, you might do the exact same thing and they're giving you a 10 because it was, efficient and quick. I think I just wanted to touch on when we talk about high performance as well or exceeding expectations. in a contact center, there isn't really just the one objective. Where I've worked, at least, you have
Yeah,
things like if it's handle time, NPS, first call resolution, adherence as well. And I feel like when a banker understands the bigger picture and the the rule of averages in a way, um,
yeah,
I find more generally with people who are brand new to contact center roles, and suddenly it can feel like you're being told to do something in a certain amount of time. It's understanding that, well, no, like we were just talking about, this customer prefers a longer conversation. Fine, that's going to take potentially 10, 15 minutes, but you're going to have other customers through the day who just want to find out if it's the balance of their account, if it's just to have their login reset. They don't want the conversation. They just want to get off
yeah.
and on and off the phone really quickly. Yeah.
It's yeah, and I guess it's the same for us, right? Isn't it? Some of us
Mm,
like a totally different style to others when it comes to being a team member, learning new things, sitting in a leadership role. So it is really important to actually cultivate that skill. So if you think about how you build that in your people, what are the types of things you do? Because to me, that's high performance, right?
yeah.
Knowing what the customer needs, intuitively being able to then translate that into the actions you take. How do you empower your people to be a part of that? And you touched on earlier that one of your early roles as a team leader was for new starters, right? And
Mm,
I mean, that's a whole new world when it's particularly if it's their first step into a contact center environment. They would have heard all the bad things about it. And then they walk into it and they feel this, it's all, the myth and all of
yeah.
that. Heard, your toilets breaks are timed and all those horrible things you chain to a desk. But sometimes it's hard because they're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to learn so much
Mm,
that actually some of those tactical metrics become something they can anchor to or hold on to. So it is a longer process to actually create this environment where people feel empowered and trusted
yep.
to actually be able to actually make some judgment call in relation to how that interaction is going to be managed. How do you create an environment where people feel safe to do that? What are some of the practical steps you take?
Yeah. Really, I look at it, and if we talk about a new starter or even somebody who's
Yeah,
new in my team, and really assessing where they're at, I like to think of it as almost like a pyramid out of building blocks. So you've got your building blocks of what's the most basic thing that you should be able to do first. And for some people, that could be as simple as getting here on time. Having your systems up and ready to go before. If you start at 9 o'clock, I'm sure we've all maybe had a conversation with people like that in the past. Could it just be remembering to complete your security questions if that's in the role as well, and then moving from there, because once you've got the hang of it, then you can add on the next layer. I don't want to go in there with really anybody and scare the living daylights out of them to say, okay, what I need from you is to be here on time, take your breaks on time, make sure your calls are averaging X amount of minutes, you're completing all of these, conversation points part of our framework. I want to make sure that you're also leaving all of the notes on the system if that's needed, or sending a text with a reference number. And don't forget to then check your emails between your calls, and it just becomes too much. Um,
and can you also intuitively understand the customer?
yeah,
Off
yeah,
you go.
use your knowledge resources.
Yeah,
Like, slow it down, take it one step at a time, and be really measured and deliberate, and celebrate when people are doing it the right way. I think, like I said before, there's no one right way to do everything, but we generally know best practice, at least as a starting point to try this. Try this first, see how it works for you, and then tailor your approach as a leader or as the banker or the consultant as well to, okay, trying to use the knowledge system at the same time as introducing myself to the customer. I can't do that. Okay, let's stop and try to work out different tactics to do that before you start increasing. Then, when the outcomes start to be more metric focused, I think if you can really remove the metrics out of the role in those early stages and talk about the behaviors and the actions that you're expecting to see or hear on calls, and then the banker themselves can see or hear that and feel rewarded for that tangible difference in what was before and after, you can then start to tie that in with also your handle time is lower, or have you noticed your MPS has increased? So it doesn't become overwhelming. And as a leader or a coach, when you become really structured and routined in your own mind of
Yeah.
how you do that, it doesn't take a long time. You can almost sometimes with people, it depends on their ability as well, move between those. If we're saying there's 4 steps at the bottom, you can move through those within the first few days of their first week, and then start to ramp it up. And some blocks may take longer than others, but as long as you're not making it overwhelming and really taking it slow but with purpose, um, it shouldn't be a hard process.
It, it's practice though, right? It
Yeah.
is this constant iteration where I think, when I talk to you, I'm always left with an impression around how focused you are on kind of approaching every situation as a learning opportunity for you.
Mm.
What do you take away from it? What can you adjust and do a bit differently? And how do you learn
Yeah.
in your craft as a leader? And I think me, that's actually a really important component, right? That how you approach it is is not always about the other person. It's not always about your team member, but as you say, it's about understanding them enough that you can see how to motivate them. What's their currency? How do you
Yeah.
drive them, and how do you understand what matters to them? And then that becomes those small adjustments that you can make to your natural approach to things. It'll be nuanced, right, depending on what they need from you.
Yeah, and over time, again, it's just that experience piece.
Yeah.
The more people you lead, the more coaching sessions you have, you do start to notice similarities between different types of people. If it's the way that they receive coaching, that they like to receive information, and then you're really just pulling on that library in your own brain to go, well, this worked with Sarah. I'm going to try this with Susie, who is quite similar in personality. If it works, great. I know that that's something that I can use as a tool. If it doesn't, all right, maybe I'll try something different that I've used with a different person. It's the same when I talk to consultants about that, where you start to notice the same types of customers as well.
Yeah.
Different profiles might be different, situations in the detail, but they've got that same style of communication or style of receiving information or learning. They might want to ask more questions, things like that. So yeah, absolutely, having the experience to be able to stop and just think that, how am I growing and developing through these
Yes.
conversations, will not benefit, well, it will benefit me, but I think about the future people. How much easier am I going to make their lives because they didn't have to go through 3 weeks of Liam stumbling around trying 4 different things before it finally hit? He'll come in with a new group and I'll say, try doing this first, and it's an 80% success rate. Yeah.
I like that. I like that approach that you're thinking about, the future team members that you're going to be leading. If you think about, you know, again, you talked about Melbourne lockdown. In Queensland, we didn't have quite the same experience
No,
that you
my
guys did,
friends ran up there.
or in Sydney. Very different environment for working and the rest of it. But if you think about the challenges that we saw across that period for mental health, well-being, feelings of isolation, all of those things that we've continued to try and say, how do we deal with this better? What sort of, and again, your role as a leader is it comes with great responsibility, I
Mm,
say, because some of those early signals are things you need to be looking for, which again is hard when you're just starting out as a leader. And even for some experienced leaders, it's about consciously looking. Um, how do you sort of look and identify? And again, you've talked about knowing your people, right? So I guess that's your first starter. Um, what are the sorts of things you do to ensure that well-being piece is kind of front of mind, but
mhm.
equally, you've still got to drive a business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have people who have positive well-being, if it's mental or physical health, that can lead towards performance.
Yeah.
You can think about it maybe in personally, as you're all sitting there. If you're not feeling 100%, then your work's probably, you're conscious that your work may suffer from it. Um, so yes, knowing your people is important. Having an opportunity in your regular one-on-ones to stop and check in, be it
Yeah.
at the start or at the end. In the same way where you're um, communicating with friends or family, you're talking about existing things that are happening. Oh, how's it could be as simple as how's the family, how's the dog, how was the holiday, or you mentioned this, and being able to, I guess, without interjecting yourself, being aware of what's going on in people's
Mm.
lives. When you, I think back to when you maybe more so younger people in the team, where you can maybe see where they're going with a story or a situation, or something might cause a problem down the track, and you do just have to let it be, but knowing that that's something that I might need to address in the future. It could be a breakup or something like that, and
Yeah.
you don't want to come to work. You can have situations where people say, I want to come to work because it takes my mind off scenarios, which is, it can sound admirable, but within the first hour, and you check in with someone, if it's a death in the family, or a beloved pet or something, and you just check in on them and they just lose it, and it's being at work isn't the right thing for you, and they're the things that people will remember um, years down the track. And that's what I hope for, is that anybody in my staff, even if they never reach out, will look back and go, I'm glad that Liam was my leader, and took the time to stop and check in with me, and respected that I did need to share more, or I didn't want to share more, and he didn't try to pry. He really made it as simple as, at the end of the day, your health is important, and if you're healthy, then your work improves from it. Don't try to just
Yeah.
get through work with by self-sacrificing your ability. So most workplaces will have if it's an EAP program, if it's links to wellness, referrals, things like that. Just making sure that you are still, as a leader, following the right lines. You're not jumping in and making things worse, or overstepping your boundary, but you're letting your staff know as well that there are avenues or opportunities that work can assist you with, if they can. And then for anything else, just making sure that you document and refer it if need be, depending on the case. Because sorry, I'm going off a little bit in tangent. Keeping your manager in the loop as well is important.
Yeah.
Don't
Definitely.
Yeah, we're all people. Um, you know, you're not wanting, or hopefully you don't have that thought of, oh, if I tell my manager, they're going to say, why are you doing that? Because your manager is going to say, oh, yeah, that's great. Like, you know, just keep me
Thanks for the
updated,
heads up.
keep me in the
Yeah.
loop.
Yeah.
Yeah, hope they're doing all
Yeah.
right. Maybe you have a manager who will go and have a chat with them as well, because they care that much. So, um, yeah, without giving things, obviously, your confidentiality and things like that, making sure that people know that they are cared for, they can feel
Yeah.
safe to bring things up. If they're not initially wanting to bring anything up that might be going on, they know that you are available when they're ready. And it's respecting their boundaries as well. So, yeah, like I said, people might choose to come to work. People will say, I don't want to come to work for a few days. But knowing your people, knowing that you can reach out to them and double check things, if it's a when they might be back situation, that they then have that trust in you. They trust you. They know, hopefully, that you're not trying to just lure them back so you've got one extra person on the queues for the day. It's a caring approach for your people, and they'll want to then come back. They'll want to work with you moving forward, and just really be thankful for it at the end of the day when they look back.
No, I like that. I think if your comments earlier about no surprises and things like
Mm,
that, you've got to think about your manager in the same respect, right? They don't want surprises either. Um, I always say, when you're leading a team, that if you can reflect on what you look for in a leader, it's actually what your people want as well, right?
yeah,
It's not rocket science. They want to know that the environment's safe. They want to know that actually they're cared for, supported, and they want to know that their contributions matter. There's a whole lot of more things there, but if you think about yourself and what you want from a leader, you want someone to respect you.
yeah,
You want someone to, tell you when you're doing things well and when you're not doing things well, and give you the support and all those extra bits that can actually help you kind of step up or step into what it is that you're needed. But again, it comes back to that openness and communication and accountability and setting clear expectations. All those 101s make the conversations easier, make
Yeah, those
the
building blocks of
harmony.
a leader.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you talk about
yeah.
the building blocks. It's super important. Can you think about, how important is it to you? And for me, I think your leadership style is a really authentic style.
Mm.
You are super open. You recognize your role in things. Um, but equally, are there things that do you see the importance of vulnerability from you as a leader within your team? And I don't mean, crying on the workplace floor. I don't mean any of those things, but, role modeling and, showing your own insecurities and failures sometimes actually is so powerful to your
Yeah,
people
yeah.
that it can do a whole lot of good, right?
Yeah, in my role at the moment, I've got a team that I feel like and I probably have cultivated that, but I feel so connected with them. Like I was saying before,
Yeah.
we work together to achieve things. So for me, it could be putting my hand up to say I thought this was going to happen and it didn't. So here's what I'm doing differently about it, or I might have communicated it in a set date to you and that hasn't occurred. We've got to pivot a little bit. If I think about it as um, a leader of contact center consultants or bankers, it's also being able to. I think there is a blessing in being able to say that you've completed the role yourself as well, because you can
Yeah.
share experiences. It might not be the same industry, it might not be the same systems, but there's still those experiences that you have with customers that you go, oh, I have to tell you this because when you think about as well high pressure, well-being, suffering, I think a lot of people can get really stressed if they do something wrong, the world's going to end.
Yeah.
Um, more more
Perspective is magic, right?
Yeah,
Perspective
more often than not,
so
if it's
important.
if it's the first time, there's a clear reason why this happened. You'll be okay. It's more so obviously when we talk about repeated instances, but being able to share scenarios where I had a brain fart and clicked a button that was next to the one I should have clicked and accidentally, closed an account or whatever it might be, and using that example as the scenarios, I'd say to the customer, I'm so sorry, I just did this, but I'm going to do everything I can to solve it. When you're speaking with newer staff members, they go, oh, okay, so if you're just honest, they're not going to blow. They might blow up, they might be upset, but you've come forward with a solution. So
Yeah.
for me to be vulnerable, it's sharing, like you said, sharing mistakes that I've made in the past. Calling out when I'm not feeling well is really important as well, because
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
yep. I think as a leader, and if you are working from home, there's maybe those times where you get to have a bit of a break in the day and sit down and go through and do some, if it's reports, write up some notes, things like that. Whereas your bankers might not, or your consultants might not. They're back to back.
Yeah.
Calling out that, hey, look, I'm not 100% today. I'm probably going to spend more time on this. I might need to rearrange some things. Also, just shows that yeah, I am a person and I'm telling you I'm a person. So you please don't feel like you can't tell me that you're a person and you have, things that are happening in your life or that's going on. Yeah, vulnerability is an absolute key. And it is, like you said, the authentic part of myself. I don't want to lie to people. You know, I want to make sure, not really sure, but it's just, if you're not telling the truth, what's the point of speaking? So,
Well, it's also super like it takes real effort, right?
mm,
We talk about creating environments where people bring themselves to work. I sometimes say some things, we don't need to overshare some things, but actually the ability to actually know that the people around you not only respect you, but kind of accept that you are a human and you're going to do all of those things as well.
yeah,
It's such a leveler, right? And it's, I'm with you. I think it's, role modeling some of those things, sharing when you're not having a good day. I tell my team all the time, maybe I'm having too many bad days, but I'll say to them, I can't talk about that right now. I just need to let me think on it. And again, it gives them permission to actually operate the same way,
Hmm.
um, which again creates this incredibly rich environment where people feel safe and supported, which in itself creates great culture, which we all know engaged people do better actually
Yeah,
performance wise. So it's a
it,
cycle, right?
it goes back to that, talking about the hierarchy. Don't try to, make a deity of yourself. You can do no wrong. You're perfect, because potentially in your own brain at the moment you're not feeling that way, but you feel like you need to put up a facade for people to think that
Mm,
of you. But they would actually trust and respect you a lot more when you show that you are an individual. You can make mistakes, and if you're calling that out to start, oh, so sorry, I double booked a one-on-one. I've realized that now. I'm changing it around. Then they can say to you, oh, hey, I'm so sorry, I accidentally hit the hang up button instead of hold. That customer might come back through, whatever it may be. They can then come to
yeah,
you with those
yeah.
things, and you can then address it right away, rather than finding out a month later and it's on a report or whatever it may be, and because they were too scared to tell you because they thought that mistakes equal failure.
No, I think that's such a good example. I think the other part of it is burnout, stress, all of those things are so laden with an environment. So yeah, it's about the workload and the work types and all the other things you've got going on in your life, but also in an environment where you feel you can't fail,
Mm,
burnout and stress is heightened. So creating an environment where people are safe and steady and supported. And again, it's not about being able to, take the piss. It is about actually saying, again, we've got some really clear expectations. We're all accountable. We have open communication and we have feedback happening in real time, that those things kind of create an environment where burnout is reduced. It's not this
yeah,
pressure cooker where people are afraid to get things wrong. That I could think of nothing worse than going to work every day worried about what if I make a mistake? What if I do click that button? What's going to happen?
yeah.
Interesting,
It's
isn't it?
Yeah, it can be from sort of learned experience as well, from past leaders and
Yeah.
past environments too. And it's unfortunate where you might have some new people come through or someone join your team, and you can see that fear or that stress in them. So it is, you go back to the basics, those building blocks. If you can do this
Mm,
well, then you're fine. It's those expectations that we set, and I'll work with you. I'll make sure that I'll be with you if you need me. Like, what do you need from me to assist you
mm,
with this, to remove that fear of failure or making mistakes, and
mm.
to go, I'm not just going to start making mistakes, but I know that I'm not going to get, if it's in trouble for taking my
Yeah.
time to make sure I do it right, with the plan that as each time I do it, I try it a little bit faster, more efficiently. I'm not needing
Mm.
to, stop and ask someone for help. I can do it on my own now. And actually, I'm doing it while I'm talking to customers, and it's easy.
Yeah. And it is creating that environment where, it's an environment of adults for a start.
Mm,
And there's nothing better than a group of adults who are empowered and, trusted to actually do good things.
mm.
Uh, but, kind of called on it when some of that stuff's slipping. So, no, I love it. If you think about recognition, how do you see the importance of, you said it earlier, you call out when people are really good at things.
Mm.
How do you build that into your team dynamic? Recognizing, and it's not always the high performer with the high numbers. Sometimes it's about, really understanding the nuance. You talked about, someone might be great at dealing with this part of an interaction and really kind of celebrating that. How motivating do you find that?
Yeah, oh, incredibly. I think for anybody to be told that you're good at something, or maybe the best at something,
Yeah.
feels really nice. You might be a little bit humble and say, "Oh no, I'm not that great," but in your mind, it's still a really nice thing to hear from somebody. And you don't want to lie to someone and just say, "Oh yeah, you're good at this," when you're not, for the sake of telling them something. But like you just said,
Yeah.
looking for those things that they can do really well, and then communicating that out to the team. if it's a recognition because of a great customer outcome or a compliment that's come back through or an end of week or month result, they're pretty easy to see. But I think
Yeah.
when you're looking within the conversation, within the call, and as a leader, doing your due diligence to really monitor and review and understand people's strengths, is you can start to almost create roles in your team. Sometimes I think about, in the past, I've thought about a larger team as if it's a footy team or
Yep.
a positional type of team, and you've got your back line, your midfielders, and your forward line. So you've got people who are, never getting quality breaches, always 100%. People who can do things really efficiently through the midfield and the forward. If it's those great customer outcomes, NPS, they're always getting compliments. But understanding that, even using the footy team as an analogy, the forward line has your full forwards and your pockets and your half forwards. So there's the different roles that they might play that works really well for them. And so being able to share what works for them with the team, or other team members, or encouraging them to reach out to the person to say, look, Steve can figure out what the customer is inquiring about within about 30 seconds, and he only ever asks 3 or 4 questions. Go and ask him how he does it. Find out from him. I don't know how he does it. He's the one doing it. And it gives everybody a bit of a responsibility within the team. It gives everybody that recognition, not just from me, but from their peers. And
Yeah.
that's really important, is that when you've got a team that's, really highlighting their strengths, but then looking towards each other on how to improve their opportunities, weaknesses, whatever you might want to call it, it then takes a lot of workload off me. And again, it's, I really want to come to work tomorrow because I told James that I was going to come in and help him out or give him some quick tips, and I can't do that if I'm calling in sick or I'm not feeling too well. And highlighting that we've got the best team. I think that's something that I tell every team that, and hopefully people
Of
don't share
course.
that with all of my old team members. But I say that they're the best team that I have, and they all are. All of them individually, even if it's the same sort of initial cohort people even come through, the way that they all work together is, so rewarding. I feel really proud of them, and it's because they come in and they give it a go and they share what
Yeah.
works with others. And when you see everybody who then starts to actually participate each day, that's where you go, we're performing well as a team. Yeah, your call might be 30 seconds too long, or that 1 out of 3 breaches occurred and you're not feeling great. But look at all of the other hundreds or thousands of interactions that you have a month, not just with customers, but with your teammates, that really show why you're important and why you belong here. We can work on the coaching and improvement of that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's the recognition of that side of things, to go, it's not just my leader, it's my team as well. And then my role as a leader as well is, it's about communicating what people do really well with my leadership team or with my manager who goes out to their leadership team, around recognition of, this person has great skills. So if there's something in the future, maybe I want to go get to know them, put them up for, nominate them or whatever it is. And it might be something that I've mentioned as a throwaway comment in a one-on-one about how great, Ella is with this type of conversation, and then forget about it until 2 weeks down the track, my manager says, oh, hey, we're having a huddle about this type of conversation. Do you want Ella to come and do it? That's an awesome bit of recognition. So
I
really,
love that.
yeah,
I
sharing
love
what.
it. I think the other part of that, though, right, is it shows why it's so important to have a diverse team,
Mhm.
diverse strengths, and taking it, stripping it back, and actually being able to identify that thing that you can let that person puff their chest out and feel really valued, because it's so important to us as humans, right? That human side of it, we want to know. No one goes to work to do a crappy job, is my
Mhm.
view.
Mhm.
And some people are just more naturally gifted at some parts of a role than others. But no one goes to actually fail. So being able to, as a leader, understand and identify those little bits that someone does really well, even if they're having, not the greatest results in other areas. And as you say, don't worry about that. We can work on that. But
Mhm.
look at what you're doing here. It's such a strong way to create engagement and actually keep them so they want to actually improve in those other components. So yeah, I
Yeah,
love that.
and it helps as well if you've got, um, if say your end of year rating system, you have potentially like an exceeds or a overachieves, whatever the rating might be, that's above a meets, that you can start to test people with their existing, sorry, not their existing, but their desire to go above and beyond in their role. So,
Yes.
like I said, it could be, hey, reach out to this person, or you could speak to someone and say, could you send out an email to the team that highlights, those 3 steps that you're doing really well. If they don't do it, that's fine. It's an ask of them to do it. They're still performing in their role really well. But if they do
Yes.
do it, you can really highlight the benefit that has with, improving their skills in written word or coaching or communicating, and really, really highlighting what works. And it's almost a similar way for most people, but in their own unique skill.
Love it. Liam, we're just at time, but
Oh
I
wow!
want one last question. We could talk about this stuff all day. I love it. What does success look like for you?
What does success look like for me? It's almost like that question about happiness. I think it is happiness.
Yeah.
For me, I'm feeling successful if I have a clear direction on where I'm going. I don't want to be at the destination. That's a pretty scary place to be, because then you've got to start from the start again. Just keep on that destination. Have a destination where you feel like you're improving and growing, and you're better than you were yesterday. You're better than you were last week, the month,
Love that.
whatever it may be. That's success for me. But then having or being surrounded by people who are on that same journey, that same mindset, it it feels great to come in every day and you can see everybody. If they've had a rough night, they can talk about it. If they're enjoying work, they're celebrating that, and you're all on it together. And I wouldn't want to be anywhere else to feel successful. I don't think the monetary reward, or if it's a shout out as an email or whatever it is for myself, that's not successful. That's a great kind of outcome of what I'm doing, but
Yep.
yeah, it's just growing and developing.
Love it. Liam, I have loved chatting to you today. I always love our chats. Everybody, there's lots of thank yous and everything in the commentary. And I'm sure people have really enjoyed hearing more about what you do. We will catch up again soon, and
Yes.
we've got another great session tomorrow. So thank you for being a part of our amazing customer service week, Liam.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks everyone for attending and listening. I really appreciate it.
Love it. We'll talk soon. See ya.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, everyone.